Hello and welcome to today's show. I have so many exciting things coming up that I want to tell you about and also to share with you the topic that we're going to talk about today. So, first things first, the eclipse is coming up and you probably have already watched it by the time this gets uploaded. So, I hope that you got a chance to see it, even if it was just in the video. We happen to be in the path of totality, so I'm really excited to be able to see it and praying for some sunny weather so I can just watch from my backyard. So that's the first thing. Second thing is tomorrow I am headed to Hocking Hills, that's here in Ohio, to help facilitate a retreat as a life coach for the Beauty Boost Columbus. So I'm really excited to meet some of you. Some of you that are listening, you've been at previous retreats that I have done, and that just delights me so much. So if you are looking for somebody to help facilitate a retreat, always pop in and ask me because it is one of the things that I delight in doing. There's just something so magical about in-person connection and energy. Okay, so what else is going on? Well, in coaching this past week, there is one concept that I have talked about multiple times. And when I see that happening with my clients, that there's kind of a thing that's going on that can help each one of them, it's usually an indicator to me that there's something going on that this could help you too. So the tool that I'm going to teach you today is something that can help you if you find yourself ever stuck in perfectionism or thinking that there's only one right way to do something. And if you have a lot of all or nothing thinking, or if you're finding yourself having a lot of extra emotional or physical pain. Okay. So what is this magical tool that can help with all of those things? It is a concept that I learned from my coach and mentor, Brooke Castillo, and it is called the 50-50 principle. So what is the 50-50 principle? It's essentially that all of the things that happen to us in our lives, those circumstances outside of us, the facts of what is going on in your life, we will have a reaction to every single circumstance in our life. And about 50% of our reactions are going to be positive, and about 50% are going to be negative. This is emotional balance. This is how the world works. Like if you look into all sorts of traditions, they talk about even the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine. There is this positive and negative polarity that happens. But what happens to us is that we think that life should always be going really well. And I think it can. I think it can go really, really well when you learn to embrace and accept this 50-50 principle that there are negative things that happen and there are positive things that happen. And nothing has gone wrong if the negative things happen. What trips people up that I see over and over again is that you will see something negative, you will not want that to happen, you will resist against it, and that actually changes the dynamic of the 50-50. Rather than experiencing 50% positive and 50% negative, when you start to resist what's happening in your life, it actually brings the negativity up higher and higher and the positivity lower and lower. So what do? We learn how to process and allow negative emotions. Okay, so I want to give you some stories, some context, so you can kind of see how I've used the 50-50 principle in my life to help create inner peace and resilience and joy. So I am somebody who's moved around a lot. I don't know if everybody knows this. I've lived in 13 different states in the United States and 2 foreign countries. So three total countries in my life. So I've moved around a ton. My dad was in the Army growing up and he retired after I moved out. So I did all of the military moves with them. And when I got married, my husband joined the Air Force and we have been moving ever since. So with all of these moves, with all of these transitions, I found myself doing something kind of on accident. But when I noticed that I did it, I wanted to do it more because it helped me so much. Now, wherever you live, whatever place it is a fact. Living in Ohio, living in Hawaii, living in Alaska, living in Japan, California, all of these different places. I didn't live in Alaska, but I've got lots of friends that have lived there. wherever you live is the facts. And I chose, and I actively choose over and over again, this belief that wherever I live is the best place that I've ever lived. It has served me well my whole life. However, we don't get to stay where we're at for very long. We're going to stay here for a while, so I'm very excited about that. But in order to help me to transition, to move to a new place, what I would do unconsciously, and then I started to do consciously, was that I would focus on the things that I actually didn't like about the place that we were currently living, and started to focus on all of the things that I did like about the new place that I was moving, okay? The negative things were always there about the place that I lived. I just chose not to focus on them. And the positive things they're always there even when I'm going to move, but I chose to focus on the things that I didn't like, or my negative 50-50, when I was getting ready to move. This helped me so much. So for example, like we lived in Japan. There's so much that I loved about it. In fact, I really didn't want to move from Japan, so maybe that's not a great example. But while I was there, I was focused on, I love watching my husband speak Japanese. He's fluent in Japanese. I loved watching him be able to use this skill in this country. I loved being able to expose my kids to a whole different culture and language. I loved being able to learn about how people, especially mothers, how they parent in a foreign country. A lot of my parenting stems from things that I learned from my Japanese friends because I had little kids when I lived there. I loved those things. There's like so many things I could tell you I loved about Japan. About 6 months before we were getting ready to move, I started to focus on the negative. And this is maybe to protect me, maybe to help me to deal with the upcoming impending move. But I started focusing on how it was hard to be away from family and that the time change was really challenging. It was hard to connect with them. And whenever I'd call them in the morning, they were getting ready to go to bed. So it was hard to communicate and be close with them. It was also hard to find food that I like, American dishes that were easy to make. So I started focusing on all of the amazing American things I could make. I focused on being able to make chocolate chip cookies because in my house in Japan, it was an incredible, amazing high-tech house. It didn't have an oven. So I didn't bake for 2 years, which is not that big of a deal to me. I like to cook, not bake as much. But I started focusing on that, okay? So you can use this too for your advantage. Like, what are the 50% negative and positive about any situation in my life? It doesn't have to be where you live. Where do you want to put your focus? Do you want to focus on that negative? Or do you want to focus on the positive? Do it from a place of intention, okay? All right. How can this help with parenting? This 50-50 principle, okay? So my kids' behavior, I think about if they are generally kind of, doing what I want them to do about 50% of the time, I now consider that a win. I used to think my expectation, that's the other thing this helps us with, is our expectations. I used to expect that if I taught my children a certain way and they knew how to do this thing, whatever, like maybe do a chore or how they were speaking to people in public, if they were saying thank you, whatever. I used to think that if I taught them and they knew how to do it, then they needed to do it 100% of the time. This brought me so much pain, so much emotional pain, because they wouldn't. And so when I took the expectation down to 50%, if they know how to do this and they do it 50% of the time, awesome. I consider that a win now. And because I've chosen to do that for my kids, and probably because it's probably a chicken and the egg, I started doing this about the same time with expectations for other people and expectations for myself. So when I took down the expectation for myself that it was more of a 50-50 balance, like 50% of the time, I am going to totally love parenting, and 50% of the time, I'm really going to struggle with it and not really like it. It started to make it so that I experienced more positive in my life, and the negative was so much more manageable. It was just part of life. It helped me to accept that and to be able to focus on what I really do love. Okay. So, another example in parenting is I think about my son. Like, he wants to play the iPad all the time. He's like my 7-year-old. Well, all my kids like want to play screens all the time, right? It's so good. We're like, want the dopamine, want to just turn our brains off and just go play. I totally get it. I'm the same way. Okay. If I expect when my son is done, when his iPad time is over, that he's going to be happy about ending screen time 100% of the time, I am going to give myself so much emotional pain because I'm going to be resisting reality and what is actually happening and telling myself all of these stories about if I was a better mother, if he was a better, if he was a better son, whatever, all of these stories that are just so utterly unhelpful. So now my expectation is if he throws a fit 50% of the time and he doesn't throw a fit 50% of the time, that's a major win. Or maybe he's just always going to throw a fit at the end of iPad time, but there's other parts of being his mom that are going to be 100% awesome, like 100% bad here, 100% awesome here, 50-50. So like, it's so wonderful, like reading him a story and enjoying cuddles and snuggles. Like, that part is always amazing. And maybe the end of iPad time is always terrible. So using that 50-50 principle helps me to stay regulated in my body, to feel good about the job that I'm doing as a parent, and to actually show him true love. Okay? All right. How does this relate to either physical pain or chronic fatigue? Okay? Let's get into it. So the thing about when we experience chronic pain, especially if it's that neuroplastic pain or the chronic fatigue, is that the more that when you experience those uncomfortable sensations or that tiredness, the more that you want it to go away, that is actually a form of resistance. And the more that you resist what you're experiencing physically in your body, that is what amps up the negativity. Okay? So when you start to just be more neutral about what's happening and being like, okay, hey, I actually didn't experience this when I thought that I was going to. I wasn't fatigued after this day that I thought I was going to be. Like, start to focus on that instead of that being the normal. Just recognize maybe that's just the 50%. And then when I do start to feel these chronic symptoms, that's the 50% of when I don't feel great. It's a balance. Okay, I haven't talked about this particular piece, but the emotional balance is so important because I like to think about the analogy of a fish swimming in water. A fish doesn't know that it's swimming in water until it feels the effects of being outside of the water. When it's out of the water, all it wants to do is get back in the water. If we were to go around our entire lives just feeling happy the whole time, we actually wouldn't understand what happiness is. It would just be our baseline. We cannot fully comprehend the magnitude of joy and pleasure without experiencing sorrow and sadness. It's that interplay of the two emotional states that makes the experience so rich. If you didn't experience this disappointment in your life, then you wouldn't understand feeling validated, understood, seen by somebody else. It's the interplay of the two that helps us to understand the rich complexity of our emotions. If you didn't understand betrayal, you actually wouldn't understand love. It's that interplay that helps us to be able to see, oh wow, I actually do really value feeling love, feeling the emotion of love, feeling happiness, joy, and peace because I've experienced the opposite. I have experienced that 50% negative, and the more you let yourself really, really feel that 50% negative and let it flow through you. We don't hold on to it. We don't tell it has to leave. The more that you tell the negative it has to leave, the more that it clings on and escalates because we stay in this fear state and our brain and body cannot process the emotion in a fear state. We have to bring safety to those emotions. It's the same thing. You would not fully appreciate your health without having seen what it feels like to experience chronic symptoms, chronic conditions. Now that I am in my 40s, I am so in love with how my body feels because I know how sick I was in my 30s. In fact, I just got a blood draw this morning for an upcoming nephrology appointment. And one of the ladies, she was like, "Oh, is your birthday in 93?" And I'm like, "No, it's in 83. I am very glad I'm not born in 93. I'm like, "My 40s are awesome." And they were like, "What? That's weird." I'm like, because I've had the juxtaposition of being in my 30s and experiencing organ failure, experiencing all sorts of chronic symptoms happening in my body and not being able to fully participate in life the way that I had always envisioned. I wasn't able to live into my purpose the way that I thought that I would. That felt so devastating. And now it makes that I'm able to do this coaching program and this podcast and put out all of this content for you so amazing. It feels so good in my body to be able to live into that purpose because I understand what it feels like to not be able to do that. And if you're in that mode right now where you're not feeling like you can live into your purpose, you're just so stuck in this cycle of chronic fatigue, the chronic pain, not being able to get out of bed, not being able to move very well, I so feel you. And this 50-50 concept can really, really help. Because as you understand, yep, there's going to be days that are really terrible and there's going to be days that are really good. It helps to bring you into an emotional balance. Because even in the midst of having really terrible sensations in my body from being in organ failure, there were still days that I did feel really good. They were further and fewer between, but now I can even look at it and be like, okay, maybe my 30s was the 50% negative that I needed. And now my 40s are the 50% awesome. So it was like 100% terrible there, and now it can be 100% awesome now. It's just such a wonderful tool to help you be flexible with what's happening in your life. So I would encourage you, if you are experiencing chronic symptoms, start to let go of feeling like it should be good all the time. If you start to experience feeling better in your body and then you feel worse, don't look at that as something has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. We have this 50-50 balance. And you go back to that, it's like, yeah, 50% of the time, I'm actually going to feel really terrible about what's going on with my life. And 50% of the time, I'm going to feel really awesome about it too. So I hope that this helps you to understand that 50-50 concept a little bit better, that it just exists in our whole entire world, that 50% is positive, 50% is negative, and the more that you resist the negative and want the negative to go away, the more negative it becomes. If you think about like if you had a beach volleyball and you were pushing it underwater, resisting against the buoyancy of the water, you can push that ball underwater for a while. But eventually, I don't know how long, many hours, days, I don't know how long it would take, your arms would eventually get so exhausted that they would let go. And then from the resistance, the ball would pop back up. So it's the same thing with us. When we resist how we're feeling in our bodies, when we try to avoid it, when we react negatively to it, it just builds up and it just feels so terrible. So, but it's a concept that we're not used to doing. We're not used to feeling things in our bodies. We're used to seeking the immediate gratification, seeking distraction, trying to get dopamine somewhere else instead of turning inside and understanding that you have every single answer that you need inside your body. You know what you need. It's just a different skill set to listen and learn how your body speaks. You're used to listening to your thoughts, and hearing them just whirl around and tell you all the things that your life should be this way or shouldn't be this way. It's so different when you start to connect with your body. I love the way that Corinne Crabtree talks about processing emotions and allowing emotions. She's got a 3-step process. It's an acronym called NOW. And essentially, the N is for notice, the O is for open, and the W is for witness. So when you start to notice that you're having a negative emotion in your life and open up to that experience, physically open your body to it, breathe deeply into it, and then witness it. Where are you feeling that negativity in your body? Where is it existing? And then as you breathe into that, allow it to pass through, because emotions were always created to move through your body, and you get good at that skill set. You won't only want to do that for negative emotions. You'll also want to do it for positive emotions. Because when you start to dull the negative emotions, it actually dulls down the positive ones too. So if you want to create an extraordinary life, it all comes down to being willing to feel all of the emotions to their fullest capacity and allowing your body to be the beautiful place that you get to do that through. You get to learn how your specific body works. It is the work of a lifetime, and it is one of the most amazing God-given gifts that I think that we could ever experience, is understanding how our bodies are, how they work, and how they learn and how they grow, and how we can connect more deeply to ourselves, to our community, and to the people around us and love them better because we're learning how to love ourselves better. Okay, if this speaks to you and you want to learn how to do any of these things, how to process emotions, how to see a different perspective, how to understand how the 50-50 rule might be happening in your life, and how that you can start to implement these tools, I encourage you to get on a call with me and to find out about life coaching and how this can help you to decrease the physical and emotional pain in your life, help you to get your energy back, and also to help you to handle the perfectionism and all of the pressure, all the way that you've been dealing with stress, to start to bring peace to your body and to your life. That is the power of life coaching. All right, have an incredible week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.